Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual panel discussion titled Reset, Rethink, Redeem, put together by Instituto Marangoni and El Decor India. I know that 2020 has been an incredible year, fascinating and frustrating in equal parts. We've enjoyed being at home, but throughout it, we wish for things to go back to normal. Over the last 3 months, we've learned to hope, to change, to realign our thoughts, to readapt our lifestyles. We've lost time, but we've gained perspective. We've learned the difference between essentials and non essentials. We've learned what we need versus what we want. We've learned to remain positive and face our reality. We've learned to spend cautiously when we learned to how to aspire for better. I think this is where design can play a huge role in our daily lives, more so now. I'm happy to be on board with Instituto Marangoni Mumbai, which is known for nurturing emerging young talent and creating a dialogue to facilitate innovation in interior design. For this panel discussion, I have with me the top opinion makers and influencers from the design fraternity in India to discuss the most pertinent changes we must expect in near future and how they are arriving at these decisions. The need of the hour, they unanimously agree, is to hit the reset button and start afresh, rethink design processes, and redeem our planet and ourselves. So, discussing the three R's reset, rethink, redeem are Anubhav Gupta. Anubhav's alma maters include MIT and University of Cambridge. He is an architect, urban designer, author, lecturer, and even an economist. In fact, in 2017, he was named in Perspective magazine's list of Asia's 40 under 40. He currently serves as Godrej Properties executive president, where he leads as business head for the redevelopment of Godrej's land holdings in Vikhroli, as well as the company's chief CSR and sustainability officer. All of this aside from founding the innovative GPL Design Studio. Elena Marinoni, trend forecaster, consultant, program leader for the visual design department at Istituto Marangoni Design School in Milan. Elena wears many hats. One of her specialities lies in spotting social media-driven trends that affect the world as we know it. As a tutor, she covers topics such as trend forecasting, cool hunting, cult searching, aesthetic design trends, contemporary design analysis, and sociology of design. Kohelika Kohli. Soon after completing her formal education in architecture at the Pratt Institute of Design in New York, Kohelika interned with Sir Norman Foster in England. One of the projects she worked on was the Foster extension of IMP's East Wing in the Boston Fine Arts Museum. Currently as CEO and creative director of K2 India, she works along with her mom, the legendary Sunita Kohli, on a wide range of projects. She also develops contemporary furniture. Pinakin Patel, self-taught, innovative, energized, no other words describe the zest this multidisciplinary designer and architects bring to the world of design and philanthropy. His attitude towards learning has enabled him to practice architecture, landscape, interior, furniture, and even fashion design. He perhaps was one of the first amongst his peers to socially distance himself and move to Alibag. One of the best things that Pinakin has brought to the fore in the last 5 decades of his career is the India modern design aesthetic. Shalini Misra, founder and creative director of her namesake practice, studied at Delhi School of Architecture and Planning, then specialized in urban planning at the University of Columbia, New York, before completing virtual reality in architecture at the Bartlett School of Architecture in London. She shuttles between London and Delhi and is known for her 20 years career as an interior architect, designer, and property developer. Her approach to design is as focused on art and aesthetics as it is on wellness and sustainability. And then there's me. I am a fine arts graduate with a major in applied arts from MS University, Baroda. I moved to Mumbai 21 years ago and dived into the deep end of magazine publishing. I've been with El Decor for 19 years and now serve as a magazine's editor. And today, along with Instituto Marangoni, it's my pleasure to kick off this discussion. So I think there are some disturbances. I can hear some voices. So I think besides the panelists, if everybody can switch off their mic, that would really help. Yeah. Okay. So first thing first, let's get an idea of what needs to change and where do we start. Pinakin, what are your thoughts on this? Pinakin, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. So Pinakin, what are your thoughts? What needs to change and where do we start?
Yeah. The thing is that normally it's easy to find a solution when you have one problem on hand. But if you can see that this time it's economical, it's political, it's geopolitical, it's health, it's economy, it's retail, it's consumption. So, it is such a complex problem that if we try and find simple solutions for one thing at a time, maybe, they'll get imbalanced with something else. So I feel that some very basic thinking needs to be done, and across the board to say that I'm kind of touting for a philosophy called essentialism, which is neither need nor greed, but it's somewhere in between, to say that what are the essentials of life. And if we can go back towards just that, I guess we'll get a balance between sustainability, efficiency, good comfort of living. And finding that balance, I think, is what I feel that the creative community should get together and define that balance, to say that, okay, we've started accepting things from the microwave down to 4G. I mean, if you are still going to interfere with all the electromagnetic forces on Earth and go into 5G, then who knows, you may get more it'll affect your health even more than the current crisis. So somewhere we'll have to optimize, and I guess today's discussion should throw some light on it.
Okay. Do you agree, Kohelika, with this?
Sorry?
Absolutely. I think Mr. Patel has touched, he's absolutely right. Especially living in a country like India, the problem is so widespread and it's so deep-rooted, because you touch one thing and you don't know what the next thing you're going to affect. And there is no general answer. We can't generalize the problem, right? A problem we, as people on this panel and our clients face, are so different to the problems which the majority of the population of our country are facing. But if I just talk about us as designers, I know everyone's had a different reaction to COVID. It gave me a chance to think about everything that I would change, what we could do. And I've always come back to think that, and I've also ended up being a design institute, and I've come on the board of that institute. And I'm really excited about that, because I think we need to start by educating designers. And I think a problem in India, which is so deep-rooted in our fraternity, is we do not teach well. We have new institutes pop up on a very regular basis yearly, but we do not educate them well. We do not educate them about vernacular architecture. We don't teach them the importance of sustainability. We don't teach them the importance of the footprint we leave behind. Yes, we can study Frank Gehry and Carlos Capa and Norman Foster, but the point is they are conscious of what they are doing. Designers and architects conscious about what we need to teach the importance of our own culture and our heritage, and we don't do that. We've got so. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes.
We've had for the last 20, 30 odd years, if not longer, we've been driven by everything the West is doing. And Elena is here, and we are so driven by what happens in Italy, rather than looking inwards. And I think for me, my immediately when you ask this question, what comes to me is we need to start looking inwards and seeing what is the best we can do. It doesn't mean about boycotting Chinese products. That's not what I'm trying to say, but really it is about looking inward and looking at our culture and heritage and taking that forward.
Okay. What is your opinion, Shalini, on this? Where would you start? What do you think? Shalini, you're on mute.
Okay. Well, overall, I believe that for the sake of the planet around us and we, the people who live in it, every project that we engage in must have a responsibility to the world we inhabit. What this means in practice is that we need to continue to seek practices which incorporate healthy and sustainable materials and process, and we need to be innovative about it. We've all had to change and start working from home in this COVID period. We've also had to spend a lot of time with ourselves without social distractions. This, I'm sure, has led to several changes within each one of us, and this connection with the inner and the outer environment to me is very interesting, and we should carefully examine this shift in these unusual times. I think Kohelika touched on this subject as well.
Right. So, Elena, from a trend forecaster's perspective, do you see any particular trends that are becoming apparent? Elena, you're on mute. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine.
First of all, good afternoon to everybody. And I totally agree with Mr. Pinnakin, with Kohelika, with Shalini, because we are now facing such a huge systemic crisis since the outbreak has transitioned us in a totally different reality. So the world as we know it has changed. And I'm not only getting at the fact we are facing a global crisis with apparent consequences from the social, economical, and political point of view, as Mr. Pinnakin said. But from my perspective, as a trend forecaster, I also see that people's mindset and priorities are changing radically. The lockdown has boosted the evolution of trends that have been growing year on year, and in the meantime, new phenomena have appeared. I'd like to highlight three of them. First, our homes, which may once have been a simple place for rest, are now set to become much more than this, multiplying their functionalities to welcome a much more fluid work-life balance. Second, wellness has come home, becoming key. People are looking for ways to stay physically and mentally healthy. And as a consequence, health has become a holistic and home-centric matter. Third, the current pandemic crisis is driving the need for safety. And this will impact how we build environments, just as past outbreaks have shaped architecture and design throughout history. So as fear of virus contamination continues to grow, the very same meaning of the word clean is expected to shift from a mainly sustainability-related term to one that describes a germ-free design solution.
Okay, wonderful. So, Anubhav, do you see the relevance of such trends in India as well? Where would you start?
Thanks, Mridul, for having me on the panel, and I hope everyone's keeping safe and well. I think Elena put it quite beautifully in terms of the trends, and I think these are global trends. What I wanted to start with is to say that, everyone's talking about the new normal, right? And, it bothers me some because, we don't have to plan for as if COVID is going to be the new normal. COVID is going to go away, right? I think we need to hold on to what we liked of the normal and plan in a better way so that we can cope with COVID-like situations in the future, right? What we're seeing in India, at least, is definitely the idea that the home has become your sanctuary. And everything is kind of centered around your home, right? People are preferring to be in homes, in locations where they can walk, buy their groceries, their essentials, and so on and so forth. So suddenly, I would think mixed-use developments would be, kind of part of the choice-making situation after this COVID, crisis is over. Also, what I'm finding is this idea of space and how space is used. I was talking to somebody, and they have 2 kids, and in terms of the kids using screen time for learning, both the husband and wife working from home, it's been a nightmare for them to try and manage in a 2-bedroom flat, right? So this idea that going from real commuting to telecommuting, how do you manage your spaces inside your homes for work, for learning, so on and so forth. I think on the wellness side, again, as Elena touched upon, we are seeing a lot of technology, right? Touchless elevators and things like that, materials which are antimicrobial and, stuff that you can clean easily and so on and so forth. So, in a nutshell, these are the kind of places the trends are going to. I don't necessarily think these are trends per se. I think these are interesting things that need to change in any case. And I would imagine that people are already adapting to these, challenges. And once COVID goes away, a lot of these things will become normal course of action, and we hopefully go back to everything that, I know we took for granted, but hopefully we'll value them a lot more.
Right. So, one of the movements I feel most strongly about is, sustainable living, yes, especially water conservation, minimizing waste and maximizing reuse. I think recently Rosanna Orland's Guiltless Plastic, which emphasizes on reuse of material, was done very interestingly. I think it's high time that sustainability goes mainstream. How we can live, design, and build sustainably to ensure that it has a greater impact, but at a population at large. So Anubhav, sustainability is an everyday KRA for you. What do you recommend?
No, I think it's a silver lining, right? After the lockdown, the sky is blue, the birds are chirping, and we like it the way it is. And surely, somebody was joking that if sustainability had the same publicist as COVID, I think we would be in a far better spot. Again, and I can speak for us as Godrej, we've been looking at sustainability for a long time. Everything that we do, 95% of our portfolio is green and sustainable. 5% is kind of the old projects. And for us, it has always been part of our DNA. Now, when we look at sustainable products, we know for sure that the benefits accrue to the customers, i.e. we will make the product and we'll hand it over to the customers, but it's really in the use of the products that these benefits happen. And I always like to use the analogy, and I don't know why it hasn't been successful or why it's not so mainstream in India. When we buy a car in India, the first question we ask is, how much average will it give me? And I wonder why we don't say the same about our homes or our buildings. And if we would know that it is not only the right thing to do for the planet, but also in terms of your pocket, right? Our research reveals probably around 5% extra on cost of construction for a green building. And it more than pays back over the life cycle of the use or the product. And a lot of this is about educating the customer, talking to them, and thankfully, the millennials have changed their mindset. We are getting a lot of people who are asking these questions. Earlier, they wouldn't ask these questions. Also, at the group level, we've got 3 goals, which, I think a lot of corporations can adopt, which will help make a bigger impact. We are a water positive company as of today. It's an ongoing battle, but it's a big one. We are a carbon neutral company. What we've been struggling with lately is waste to landfill. Now, this is a very important thing that, and I can't stress on this enough, right? In real estate, or even the things that we design, I don't think we are thinking about the circular economy. I don't think we think about where our waste goes. So I think these are the areas that we need to think about. We need to look at. Of course, design is always going to be at the forefront of innovation. We've looked at solar power street lamps, we've looked at urban farms, some of which have been very successful. So what I would say is definitely we need to make sustainability mainstream now, and there's no better time.
Right. Okay. So it's not. I mean, it's not just about sustainable practices, but it's also a lot of sustainable materials that are there. Shalini, this is something you feel very strongly about. What is your opinion on the materials, sustainable materials?
Well, the word sustainable feels like a buzzword these days, as it's so frequently dropped into conversations and is a hot topic. And yes, it's one of the areas that I feel very strongly about for more than one reason. As we've already been discussing, using such materials, because they are sustainable and because they help conserve vulnerable areas of the world, is of paramount importance. But the great joy is that there are so many examples of materials that can be used, which are much more beautiful and much more effective than industrial counterparts in any case. One such example is cork, which is versatile, it's beautiful, it's natural material that works brilliantly well as flooring, wall tiles, and furniture fittings. From a sustainability perspective, it's eco-friendly, its extraction does not involve felling of a single tree. Linoleum, marmoleum, is another natural material made of linseed oil and plant extract, which is excellent to use in furniture. Some other examples are rugs, which are made out of excess silk yarns from the silk industry, from the sari industry, rugs made out of plastic fiber with plastic waste from the sea, rugs made out of natural plant materials from jute, date, palm, and okra stems. Bamboo is another great sustainable material as it grows really fast and it's very light to transport. The other ways to use sustainability is to recycle, to upcycle. These are really important tools. Try to use reclaimed timber or timber sourced locally. Architectural salvage materials, vintage, antique furniture are such a joy in any interior. And you must have heard of kintsugi, which is an old Japanese method, which is adding a beautiful gold line to broken crockery and plates to fix them together. So these are some suggestions.
Okay, so that does make a lot of sense.
Mridul, sorry, I'm interrupting.
Yes.
Nobody can join in, right? To this.
They all are listening, but
no, they can't join in. So I just got a message. My mom got thrown off and all, and so okay. I don't know whether there's actually having a technical problem or there isn't one.
Okay, so I'm just.
Sorry, I apologize to break the rhythm of it.
No problem. So Viral, if you're listening, so people are not being able to join.
I've got 2-3 messages saying that we can't join. We've been trying, so.
Okay, so just can I just pause for 1 minute and
no, let's just sort it out. Otherwise.
Yeah. Viral, are you listening? There is some.
There is like a new link.
Do you think?
I don't think everyone will have that now because they're not on this. They've been thrown off, so they can't read this link.
Okay, Viral. Hello? Viral, apparently everyone... So according to Kohelika, apparently the viewers are not being able to join. Can you look into it ASAP, please?
Shalini, that was amazing.
Yeah, okay. So we're trying to call the Marangoni team.
The number of things you talked about which we can use. I want to have a side chat with you on those.
Would love to.
Okay, so we've got a contact. They're just fixing it.
Okay.
So it has gone. It's come and gone apparently.
No, a few people had logged. I mean, they were logged and they were thrown off, and then they couldn't log back on.
Okay.
Don't stress, Mridul.
It's working now. It's working now.
It's the same link?
It is the same link, yes. Just, let me just check. Join on phone. Apparently it's easier on phone is what I've been seeing messages on another group. We are able to see. Okay. Okay, so should we continue? Because I have a message from Sneha also that's all good. Okay. So,
but was there a problem, or I just made this up?
No, I think there was a bit of an issue. Okay. I saw Sonia and they all were like, we can't see, but we can see. So, okay. So I do feel like, you know, I did, I mean, we were at the materials from there on. Anubhav, you said about the birds hearing, it was part of my line. Okay. So another observation that I made is that lockdown has proven that the planet needed the break from this human hyperactivity. I'm actually being able to hear chirping sounds in Mumbai. During the day, it's birds, and at night, crickets. So, you know, where do you stand on this subject, Kohelika? Is it too late, or do you think you can redeem? We can redeem ourselves and planet. Kohelika, that's for you.
Well, you know, you said it. We see how nature gets itself quite healed beautifully, and I. Barsati with a lovely terrace. So the built-up area is very small, and I have the privilege of living across the Delhi golf course. So we had peacocks that used to come, and at least 3 times in the middle of the night we used to be woken up by them. And suddenly, when the motor, you know, all the cars again, the peacocks have disappeared again. I saw stars at night. I can't even remember how long in the sky. I mean, you usually have to travel abroad for that. You don't really get to see that here. Can we redeem ourselves? Well, I don't know. You know, it's a very tricky question, because in the 20th century, I think we've managed to make 500 species extinct, versus in previous centuries, the average used to be 7 to 8 species extinct. Have things gone back exactly to what they used to, even though, you know, Anubhav said we talk about the new normal? Have we learned? I don't know. You know, I really don't know, and it's sad. Have I personally learned? I think I have. But I think a lot more of us have to come together, not just in this fraternity, because this has to be inbuilt. You know, it has to be a constant. It cannot be I'm sorry, Elena. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about trends, but I think the reaction to COVID cannot be a trend. You know, it has to be something that we drive as a force in our practices. And we educate people who are coming into this profession and the clients. Absolutely. So I'm not sure whether we can redeem ourselves. I hope I can redeem what I've done. That's what I'm counting on. But
okay. So Pinakin, you moved from Mumbai to Alibag many years ago, and you're called discoverer of Alibag. Can you tell us how that's worked for you?
I think it kind of summarizes what we're discussing today, because, you know, just being older than the rest of the group, I guess this redemption factor had set into my head a little bit earlier. And therefore, I sort of moved from Mumbai to Alibag. And what I realize is that the moment one starts recommuning with nature, you're automatically taken care of, because, you know, your own vitality goes up. And, you know, while we are discussing germ-free environments and all, I personally don't think that COVID is something external, because otherwise it would have affected everybody equally. So after having stayed here for 20 years, and, you know, my carbon footprint is 0. We don't go anywhere. My workers all live on the same campus. We grow our own food. So the sort of, we do yoga, we've, you know, led a sattvic Indian life, and we've realized that state of wellness that it gives, even for, you know, nourishing your own creativity. And as a result of that, there is a thing like a higher state of immunity, a higher state of consciousness, of awareness that simultaneously uplifts all these aspects. You know, I'm 66 years old and I've never been to a doctor in my whole life. So, wow. I mean, yeah, wow. And that wellness, And when I came here, all were asking me that, oh God, if you go and stay in the jungle, how will you find a doctor? I mean, I was already 50 by then. And I said that, whatever happens to the rest of the farmers around me will happen to me, but you all better be careful because you'll be caught in a traffic jam and the hospitals won't have beds, which is what is happening now. So I think just the commune with nature, which is kind of lost. I think we need to de-urbanize so many things now. You don't need to live in a metropolis to achieve, So even if we started systematically decongesting the city, now, for example, Alibag is only 12 kilometers away from Mumbai. And when I was a child, it was like what Juhu was to the rest of the city. And the artistic community, the musicians, actors, all moved out of South Mumbai to Juhu. And that way, if even, there was some planning agency that could move all the creative forces to Alibag, they would know how to keep the place green. They would, be healthier themselves. And, some examples need to be set somewhere, which can't be done by individuals like us. I think the next effort magazines and influencers should make is to Koilika and Sunita especially can help us with this, is to make a little bit of noise in Delhi and get us involved. Also, as designers, we've lived in our ivory towers and just on the peripheries of society, including me. So I ran away from the abrasiveness of the city, but it's high time that we all became the central force of thinking now, because everyone else has tried, economists, politicians, scientists, godmen, and yet nobody seems to have brought back a reverence for life.
Sorry, Mridul, I just wanted to add, Mr. Patel, you said something lovely, and I was on a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and I heard an architect talk about this concept of urban villages. And it was beautiful, and about we going to them rather than them coming to us, because our cities anyway can't sustain themselves and we can't keep expanding our cities beyond a certain point. So yes, thank you for raising that point, and I absolutely agree. We're going to put this on El Deco and Mridul to take this forward and make a noise about it.
I think so.
Okay, so is it too late to redeem? Anubhav, what do you feel about this?
No, I think, firstly, I never think it's too late because, you can always do something about it, both for sustainability and for urban planning. And being a planner myself, I think, events like COVID just remind you how badly we failed in urban planning. And the signs are clear, right? I think the live-work relationships are changing. So you don't have to physically go to work all the time, right? We know what Pinakin's talking about always. It's been sort of the artist community that goes and finds a spot and then suddenly it gets gentrified and they are displaced and then they go and find another spot. I mean, this is how cities evolve, right? But I agree fully. I think we must take advantage of in a way, of this adversity and turn it into an opportunity and do things the right way. And we know it works. Right. I mean, I know of, I'm originally from Delhi, so I know of a similar example, a place called Ayanagar in Delhi, which is an urban village where a whole bunch of, architects and sort of creative people went and set up. Now, this is a real village, right? It's as close as it gets to the Dudwalas and so on and so forth. And it's worked well. There are fantastic examples in the Indian setting, which I think could work well. I do think that we in India need a rehaul of urban planning and urban design, what we want our cities to become, how we want to live. And I think everything else is going to be able to support that, whether it's technology, whether it's, even a new mindset. I think the millennials are changing things. I mean, we live in a kind of a shared economy. I do think there will be challenges around density and things like that, but there will be ways of dealing with it. It's not to say that everyone can run away to the mountains or the jungle, right? I think there will be ways of dealing with this in the city. I mean, Koilika talked about urban villages and several examples. So never too late to redeem ourselves. We should, let's just wake up and do something about it.
Absolutely. In fact, Pinakin, your Sattvic food has stuck in my brain. I'm coming over for Sattvic lunch with you.
There
Okay.
you are.
Jokes apart. So
that's the restaurant we started 20 years ago to say that you are what you eat. And
absolutely. Yeah. So, well, I hope, ultimately there is something we can do about urban areas as well. Villages and they have their own infrastructure and they work beautifully. In fact, I have my own village in Maharashtra, Gujarat border. And believe you me, it's so clean and neat in spite of its ups and downs. But, I guess we all figure out somehow. So I do feel, speaking of which, I feel that, with regards to the next generation, let's talk about the education for future designers, which brings me to you, Alina. Do you foresee curriculum changing in design schools? I think Kohelika pointed it out rightly at the beginning, because I think as we go along, curriculum needs to change for them to be better equipped to face any kind of situation. So are students going to be made more conscious of innovative materials, crafts, method? What do you have to say, Alina, on this?
Well, at Istituto Marangoni, in our design school in Milano, we constantly address the environmental issues. And so, as you said, education is the starting point for a true revolution, since, unfortunately, in my opinion, for a very long time, sustainability has appeared as a fascinating storytelling, but in concrete, there is so much to do. And of course, people, companies, and institutions need to embrace, first of all, a radically different cultural approach. And so education is the starting point to make this revolution. At Istituto Marangoni, in our design school in the very center of Milano, we are only at the dawn of a revolution in the field of education. As you can imagine, also the way we train students needs to change radically. At Istituto Marangoni, and more specifically in the design school, we firmly believe in an idea of a fluid school. A fluid school which is literally augmented by new technologies, that is able to blend the online and the offline dimensions, where the student is put at the very center of the didactic experience. And in our design campus, we encourage students to address the issue of sustainability with reference to materials, methods, a culture of sustainability. So across our three departments, product, interior, and visual, sustainability is transversally addressed from different perspectives. For instance, it's also important how we communicate sustainability, because the topic itself is overused. And so we give to give new meanings to this word, because it's overused and sometimes it sounds a little bit empty in my opinion. And so, yes, to come to your question, in our design campus, we encourage an hands-on approach to design thinking, problem solving, to develop familiarity with the methods and the materials that are fundamental for a designer's toolbox.
Right. So, Alina, your part of world has opened up fairly, right? And in India, we are just about inching towards it. And, every day there is records being broken. How are community and public spaces used at your end?
Well, retail spaces, restaurants, museums have reopened little by little, implementing, of course, all the safety regulations required. Our design school is finally reopening, and we are ready, and we are getting prepared for the October intake. But let me stress the fact that for the moment there is, of course, a lot of prudence, a lot of caution, And despite the fact that summertime has started, Italians, especially from the north, are still very scared and preoccupied. So we are having an extremely slow start, but I think that this is a manifestation of a strong sense of responsibility. And so it's important.
Shalini, is it true for London too?
London, I think, will sort of start reopening July 4th. Restaurants, cinema halls, museums, offices, July 5th, will start opening by then. Right now, it's still very closed in. But people are out in parks, enjoying the good weather, enjoying the good life. And no one's complaining.
Okay. I'm quite interested to see how it's going to happen in India. Pinakin, what's your perspective on this? You're sitting in Alibag, but still.
I know, but see, I think we've shown that, given a structure, we follow it. And even the Western media has been reporting quite favorably to say that, even during lockdown, and we have kind of behaved much better than we were expected to behave, Now, I feel that if we are just let out of the cage, it's a human tendency to just burst out and do whatever's being denied to you. So I feel a little hand holding will be necessary because like Elena and Shalini are talking about more sort of disciplined populations. I feel that here in between, there was a problem with starting, like let's say the trains, which is like the heart of the Mumbai transportation. And they were saying that, the day they started, it's going to be a chaos because in all these 50 years, there's never been, there are 2 deaths every day on that railroad simply because there is no place to be on that train. So unless and until you find ways and you start issuing passes for travel every alternate day, like in Delhi, all did for the cars or things like that, some hand-holding will be necessary.
Right. So I guess moving about freely is going to be a luxury in itself. And it seems that concept of luxury design might also go through a change. What do you feel, Kohelika, about this?
Well, working, I mean, like Mr. Patel, we work with a lot of, and unfortunately, while I have had the privilege to lock myself, my parents all nicely in our homes, they've gone through a completely different story. And the honest fact is they haven't been able to really distance themselves out because neither do they have the space and neither do they have the ability to do it. Well, we are right. Offices are now open. I believe it in quarantined because the people who live on the first floor of my building, 4 people have COVID. So I'm on the second floor and my parents on the ground floor. So we ourselves are quarantined. We have to find a way to live with COVID. COVID is not going anywhere. It's not going away today. It's not going away tomorrow, and it's not going away day after. And everything we read in the Western news, because I'm sorry to say the Indian media likes to give a different sort of news. But everything we read on in the Western news about our country, we know there may be a second wave in November. So, a lot of things that Anubhav also talked about is we need to find a way to live with this. I've been self-isolated. Everyone in my building has been self-isolated, yet there are 4 people on the first floor with COVID, right? Yesterday, I found out my driver has COVID, so who's been on holiday because I haven't allowed him to come in. So we just have to find a way. We have to open up. In India, our economy cannot sustain this because this is not about you and me who have the extra wealth to maybe hold back. It's about the people we employ. It's just not a manageable situation for them anymore, or for us who run companies.
So this brings me to wellness. In fact, I feel we've been in lockdown in our homes, and I have added a 20-minute exercise routine to myself because constantly being in front of screen or just doing about your housework is not taking care of your health. So I feel wellness is something needs to be looked upon immediately. So Shalini, you have a strong inclination towards wellness. What would you like to tell us? How can be done something in the house?
Well, wellness is an intrinsic core value in my design practice, which I've been using for the last 20 years. Now, increasingly, it's becoming more of a mantra. It's difficult, but I'll try and break it down simply to some tricks on how to create a balanced space that improves your well-being. Starting with, say, wellness zone. Typically, when we design a home or a space, we tend to think about it in terms of purpose-driven spaces like kitchen, bedroom, drawing room. Rarely do we consider experience-driven zones as fundamental to overall design. As designers, we always try to rethink spaces in terms of physical and psychological ergonomics and redefine the natural flow of the house so it has enhanced creativity, flexibility, and mindfulness, creating a space for relaxing, working, socializing, and so on. Natural materials is another such tool for wellness in interiors. Have you ever wondered what constitutes the essence of artfully designing interiors that is textural, restorative, and intriguing? The secret lies, for me, in natural materials, whether that's stone floor, onyx counters, timber paneling, and other sustainable materials I spoke about. Natural materials unlock the promise of feel-good factor in interiors by providing the feel of refinement and durability. Luminotherapy or light in wellness is really important. Pinakin was talking about it earlier. It's one of the most interesting aspects of every interiors we do. Upon entering any room, one's attention is often shifts to the source of light, whether it's a large window or a large chandelier. So we try to play around with a lot of lights at different heights, create different moods with lighting, and I think that is a huge uplifting factor. Another source of using light is including in our design is light which is reflected on mirrors, and using LED strips to have soft glows and so on.
Okay, wonderful.
Another principle that we do is biophilic design, which is a really good factor. Even though the art of bringing outdoor elements indoors has been in practice for centuries, it is only now that we have fully begun to understand the different qualities of plants. The secret lies in different rhythms of oxygen production and absorption that various plants perform at different times of the day and night. For instance, for the bedroom, you may want to choose aloe vera plant, which increases oxygen at night, purifying the air and helping us breathe easier while we sleep. On the other hand, plants such as parlor palm, peace lilies, weeping fig uptake carbon dioxide and release oxygen as soon as the sun rises for photosynthesis. This can be incorporated into daytime living areas to enhance your productivity and improve your mood. Color therapy or chromotherapy is another tool that we use a lot, which includes the right color palette in design. It's proving to enhance cognitive performance, reduce stress, or stimulate your creativity. Some holistic approaches contribute different healing energies to different colors. For instance, green supports balance, social harmony, orange increases creativity, productivity, and so on. As designers, we often use subdued color palettes, which are warm gray, muted greens, blues, to create a sense of calm, serenity, and positivity. Lastly, but not the least, the sleep zone is really important, and we all are used to having electronic appliances which really cause an overflow of electromagnetic radiation around us. So I always say take micro steps and keep these electronics outside your room, and regularly ventilate your bedroom and consider investing in a salt lamp. Another key element of restorative sleep is the production of melatonin, which is significantly reduced with light. So opt for blackout lined curtains in bedrooms. With a well-ventilated dark bedroom, the last aspect to add is an ergonomic mattress and natural fabric, linen, to help you wake up fresh every morning. These are simple tricks, but I feel quite essential in interiors.
Okay, wonderful. So now I want to ask, as things have drastically changed from where we are and at how we are functioning at home now. So for Kohelika and Pinakin, how are you going to design spaces now onwards? Any key learnings that you will add or modify in your projects, or how the design processes what would those be for you guys? Pinakin, you want to start? Or okay.
What's interesting is that each one of us comes from such a different background that we are talking about the same thing in so many different ways. So just as a complete contrast from Shalini, but echoing the same sentiment, I'm saying that I'm at the other end of the spectrum because, for 20 years I've been aloe veras growing out of my ears, and the soil and the earth and the darkness and all that is taken for granted. Now I have started evaluating, Shalini, to say that, if I continue to use natural materials, just by demarcation between natural and synthetic, is it going to be enough? Because very often I'm doing show flats for apartment buildings in Mumbai where, 200 apartments will be replicated according to what materials I have specified. And it's all right for me to say that a stone is a natural material, it will promote wellness, harmony, this is this. But, the amount of effort it takes to mine it, transport it from the mines, bring it here, cut it, hone it, seal it so that it doesn't absorb stains, and how many artisans and what amount of electricity to cut it and lay it is one factor. So I am now weighing the total carbon footprint and not making simple choices between materials. Material plus transport plus process plus this is the way I'm calculating. So all of a sudden, I feel that even a man-made vitrified tile that I can transport easily and lay on the floor and walk next day and send the artisans back to another site or back to their homes instead of staying in ghettos around the site is also another addressal of green.
Absolutely.
I agree with that, Pinakin. I agree with that. And in Delhi, we built a farmhouse where we set up a village where everybody, like the terrazzo flooring guy, everyone was basically working out of there. So there was no travel time at all.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay. So this brings me to Anubhav. Now, this time has had an incredible impact.
Koilika had to add to me.
Okay, Koilika, go ahead.
She's just waiting.
Sorry.
I'll be very quick. Our style of design has always been very rooted and restrained. And I absolutely agree with Mr. Patel. It's not just about using, it's not just about using sustainable things, but I think work has to be contextual. I think you need to find the product which is also closest to you and your closest reach, and which, and consciously, right? Because Mr. Patel is someone who works with master craftsmen, master weavers. Coming from the point what he's saying, today if you go out to buy a khadi sari, it's so much more expensive versus buying a Vimal polyester sari, right? We have made so many mistakes already in destroying what was our heritage. And I think all of us have to come together contextual rather than bringing in things from. We have to be rooted in whichever city, I think in the world, in India, that we are working in, and bring in things which are easily available and around us.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going back to my question. Thank you, Koilika and Mr. Patel. So Anubhav, this time has had an incredible impact on business. Could you share your perspective on how businesses will rebound from this situation? Like, do you have any plans in place? What's like the next logical step for Godrej?
Oh, so, businesses are already adapting, as are all of us. And really it depends on the business that you're in, right? Also, the trouble is that one doesn't quite know where in the value chain disruptions have actually happened, both on the supply and demand side. So we're just waiting and watching. And right now, I think the general sentiment in most businesses are one of survival, second of agility, and third of adaptation. And hopefully things will go back to normal. Now, I'll give you an example of the real estate business that we're in, right? So from a survival standpoint, after the lockdown, we figured why not go digital? I mean, customers are not going to come and see our show flats and have regular interactions and things like that, right? And pretty much the general wisdom and consensus was that we will see a dip in real estate sales, right? I mean, that's what one would have thought. Now, strangely enough, what has happened is our first quarter has been better than last year's first quarter. We've sold 1,000 crores of real estate. Now, this is absolutely, I mean, at some level, ridiculous.
Incredible.
Right, incredible. Now, we went and did some research as to why this has happened. And here are the possible reasons, right? One is this COVID thing has scared everybody, and so home ownership is going up, right? Because everyone is relegated to their homes, so now everybody wants a home or things like that. The other reason could be perhaps, capital markets are really fluid. So nobody wants to invest in, so it's either kind of real estate or gold, right? What we call tangible assets. Another reason somebody came up with, do more research, and maybe it's the NRIs that are buying it, right? Because it's the pound and the dollar hedge, right? So we're doing analytics to figure out this almost positive externality of this adversity. Now, here's the agility and the adaptation side, right? Now, all of these flats that have been sold are non-launch. That means what we call sustenance inventory, meaning this was the real estate or is the real estate in production. Now, what has happened, we've all seen the migrant crisis, right? Heartbreaking how workers have gone back home. Now, we know there are going to be delays in actually finishing this real estate, right? Whether the migrant laborers come back. So we have to be very agile. So right now we're looking at adopting technology, for example, pre-engineered, prefabricated. How do we complete these projects on time so that we meet our promise to our customers? On the design side, it's also prompting a little bit of change. And, it's an interesting one because a lot of designers don't like the word standardization or modularization, right? But we are looking at ways in which we can standardize or modularize with some level of differentiation, because at the end of the day, the whole value chain has to work, right? So in our business, we want to do it faster, hopefully cheaper, but not compromise on quality and give great value add to our customers. So at least that's how we're thinking. And, in some ways, Pinakin, really hit the nail on its head, right? It has to be a full system. So, I might love, let's say bamboo, but it may not be native to my location that I'm building in. And it, by the time it actually gets there, while I can say that I've used natural material, I'm actually being quite unsustainable in the process.
Yeah, it's pure romance.
Okay. Wonderful. So, I have one question for you, Elena. Pinakin has an interesting question for you. Do you foresee India becoming the next manufacturing hub for Italian design houses?
Good question, Pinakin. Thank you. I do believe there's for sure.
That we've given you lots of business. It's your turn to pay back, right?
Yeah, true. No, I do believe there's for sure empty room for Italian design firms and India to collaborate more at different levels. In my opinion, for instance, there is an untapped opportunity in the field of design for technologically integrated home systems, for instance. Our homes are evolving more and more in a sort of tech-safe, hyper-connected smart cocoon. Indian expertise in new technologies, smart materials, and broadly speaking, Internet of Things is renowned. And more precisely, there is also a growing interest in technologically enhanced solutions that are proven to enhance people's well-being by eliminating biological threats at the microscopic level. So, in my opinion, advanced home tech might be a great opportunity for collaboration.
What about craft, Elena?
What? Sorry?
What about craft?
Craft, handicraft.
Also, of course, but we already have in this sense a bond, a connection. So for sure, not only reinforcing craft, not only, but partnering to address this growing need for advanced tech home.
Okay. So I think we've been chatting for almost an hour. I want to. I have many questions coming on my phone. It's going up and down, but I still have one question for all of you before I open the Q&A. I'd like to quickly get responses from everybody. What is that one design commandment that is most relevant for the present and the future? We can start with Pinakin. One thing. Huh?
Reverence for life.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Pinakin.
Reverence for life.
Okay. Anubhav, what would you like to say?
I think definitely sustainability and circular economy. So design should focus on that.
Okay. Koelika?
Always be contextual. I think spatial planning is more important than embellishments.
Okay. What about you, Shalini?
I think the connection to the inner and the outer environment is really important.
Wonderful. And Elena, your one commandment.
I think we have to design less yet better.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. So now I'm going to just take some questions, which is why I will be looking up and down. But I'll start with a question which has come from Vineet Agarwal. Post-COVID, what's the potential impact we'll see on design and material preferences? Pinakin, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, I don't know from which part of India he's talking, because, it greatly differs. But if he's talking about urban spaces, what the biggest change I see is how much work we should add into a site, because more and more cooperative societies and buildings are getting very strict about allowing labor inside, and especially staying longer. So I'm seeing that unless and until, with like people like Godrej and all, if we can get systems and modules.
Pinakin, you've gone on freeze. Okay, say.
So I feel that rather than individual materials, I think we should try and get composite modules inside, so that, instead of just getting one thing done, you'll get half a room done. And then that means that there'll be less site work, there'll be less exposure for the building, and you'll get out of it quicker.
Okay, so I have a question from Sneha. How can the design real estate industry support the millions of migrant laborers, artisans, weavers, etc. better during this time and post-COVID? Anubhav, Pinakin, Pinakin, in fact, you could answer this because you have something in pipeline, right?
Yeah, what I have in mind is to say that, if you see China's success story, what it did was it did not keep on developing Shanghai and Beijing, so whichever region had a speciality, so, if it had ceramics in Chengdu, or if it had furniture in the Guangzhou area, they kind of promoted those places as industrial sort of zones, and which prevented a lot of transmigration, brought about an efficiency at work also. So I feel that I would try and take those sort of industries back to their geographical origins, and say that let's do ceramic here, let's do glass here, let's do tiling here, so that, there isn't so much migration. So I'm thinking of moving my furniture workshop with its 100 people to somewhere around Banaras in UP, because my workers seem to all come from there. And that's how I ensure that they spend 2-3 hours on their own farms just to feed us. Otherwise, we are such a heavily populated country that if we only keep talking about design, we'll go hungry.
Absolutely. Anubhav, you wanted to add something to this?
Yeah, I think I agree with Pinakin. I think two things. One is that we need to put the laborers back to work. It is very important because I was watching a talk by a guy named Chinmay Tumbe who talks about migration, and excellent. What I learned was that these migrant laborers who come to say Mumbai or whatever, they send money back home. And there's a lot of development that happens back in their native towns, right? So we need them, and the money is needed back home where they need to be. So we need to put them back to work. The second thing I think is very important in that I think we need to upskill them. And whether it's done through CSR programs or whether it's done through great architects and designers who work with master craftsmen and preserve some of these skills. I think the upskilling not only brings better incomes and better development for them, but it also, I think, generally raises the quality of work in the country. And I don't think there is any harm to even move towards an industrialized process. So, upskilling need not only be doing your work better, but for example, we're looking at the possibilities of using a ready-made toilet pod. If you wanted to make a toilet in a
aeroplane,
right? So if you wanted to make a toilet in a apartment, it is the most labor-intensive activity today. Now you can imagine how many toilets you'd have to make in, say, 200 apartments, right? Now you buy a refrigerator. Imagine you made a refrigerator like you used, like you make a toilet, right? Now a refrigerator is available. You can buy it off the shelf and you can put it in place. Imagine you could do that with a toilet. You're already doing it with kitchens, for example, right?
Yes.
So if we could bring those processes, we can educate our labor. I'm not against migration. I do think, apparently 37% of India is migrant. They go to other cities for work, and that might include you and me as well. So migration is not necessarily bad in my view, but I do think these two areas need to be addressed.
Okay, Kohelika, I have a question from Vivek Kulkarni. What are the new challenges that will be faced in real estate? Or how do you think recycling will affect the cultural and consumer behavior across India? That's from Atif. I just mixed two questions.
Sure. Well, recycling has always been. Recycling has always been very much part of our culture. I remember going on summer holidays to my grandmother's, and you'd suddenly see saris that have been suddenly now made into little blinds and curtains and old tablecloths, which have so we as Indians, we always believed in this concept of recycling. It's not. I think you said, how does recycling affect consumer behavior? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, consumer behavior is important, but I also think it's really driven by propaganda, right? And the media. And, I remember last year I had gone to drop my son to college, and I was in the Nike shop, and Nike was converting recycling plastic and turning it into like pellets and putting it into the sole of shoes, right? And during COVID, I saw Gaurav Gupta doing the same thing in turning into his jackets for his his fashion clothing, and turning all the protective jackets of that being made out of this. So I think consumer behavior is dependent also on what we encourage them to buy. Yes. And what the propaganda and the media pushes them to buy. What I worry about is to really understand recycling and what does that mean, because it is something Indians used to do at every level, from our homes, and it needs to start in our homes. And I think a lot of people, my dad, for example, he doesn't buy compost, right? Every egg that we broke in the morning, the shells had to go into a box and get crushed, and that is what would go into all the plants. There was nothing being bought from, don't even do it during COVID. Everything was being made home. So I think that concept to we have to just readjust ourselves. It's not so much about design, it's about an outcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Anubhav, that question I wanted to ask you was, what are the new challenges that will be faced in real estate? This has come from Vivek Kulkarni.
Well, I mean, it's a broad question. It depends on also on asset classes. But, I think ownership is something that we've been always thinking about and talking about. And there's been a lot of change lately. The millennials, somebody told me that I think 2020, the oldest cohort of the millennial will be 40 years old. And they think quite differently. So, we've got a whole lot of technology that's disrupting the space. So, give an example of, say, Airbnb disrupting hospitality. Give an example of, say, Uber disrupting let's say, car ownership. So I think ownership will be something that we will see trends around. I think merging of asset classes, we've already started seeing. You see, we live in a kind of a shared economy scenario. So a lot of these things are merging already. You're seeing, from co-working, now you're seeing ideas around co-living. Because of COVID already, we are talking about wellness and the home environment. So I think there's changes there. We're also seeing, let's say, retail and these kind of asset classes. We are seeing these disappear from the high street because, you've got a lot of digitization happening. I'm always more optimistic about this. As human beings, we are social animals, and a lot of people fear that real estate will go away. I don't think real estate will go away. I think the real in real estate will change a little bit. Here are some really interesting examples, right? I mean, look at Amazon. They are the biggest online retailer, but they decided to start stores. Look at what Apple has done, right? It has changed its store to this town hall format, where you come there to hear talks, do all of these things, and hey, by the way, you can buy technology. Some other really good examples I can think of. There's a shoe store called Sneaker Boy from Australia. Now, they follow the Apple model. You go to a store, you engage with the product, you try it on, you take your selfie with it, all of that stuff, right? But you can only buy it online and it'll be delivered to you in the store. So there's this whole thing about experience. There's this whole thing about the shared economy. There's this whole thing about community and people wanting to engage. And, there's always this thing of, COVID has happened and, social distancing. I think once COVID goes away, there'll be a rebound. We will want to engage more with people rather than stay away from them. So I think things are going to change in that way. And real estate has to be adaptive. I do think that, it's not going away. It's not going away anywhere. I don't think people should worry about it. I think the formats are going to change, and I think they're going to be far more exciting.
Oh, thank you so much. That was so lovely put together. I have few more questions, guys. If you guys are up to it, can we continue for 2-3 more questions? Yeah. Sure. Okay. So Dwaipayan Aich is asking Elena, what additional courses must be added to educational curriculum? Elena, can you answer this for Dwaipayan, please?
Yes, sure. In our Istituto Marangoni Design School in Milano, we are already rethinking our curriculum in order to invest more in research, in trend forecasting, in scenario planning, for the very simple reason that research is the best way to ignite creativity and problem solving, but also to train students' critical abilities in this age of uncertainty. If possible, I would love to, for instance, incorporate a course of resilience to the educational curriculum, to have students develop their capability to adapt and react positively to unexpected radical changes, because this is, for instance, first of all, an attitude. And we need to help students to embrace change and to adapt to change.
Bravo.
Okay. There's a question from Divya Jagtap. How will work implementation change after pandemic? Will there be a new way of executing projects? This is for Shalini and Kohelika. How would you execute the project? Shalini, you want to go for this?
How will we execute projects now, working from home or in the future?
Yes. Implementation. I mean, post-pandemic, you're hardly getting out of the house, but your work still continues. So, how do you do this?
I think to have a proper routine, you get up in the morning, you get ready, you have disciplined hours of work, you take your lunch hour seriously, you make a lot of video phone calls so that you're in touch with people. You make phone calls because lots of people might be feeling very differently during this time. So to have that routine of doing this work properly, have a very comfortable chair because your posture is really important, have the right natural light, the right ventilation. Simple things like that are important. To have quiet zones, because you don't want to be very quiet all the time. So to be in a social zone as well with the rest of your people who are in the house. I think these are some simple tricks.
Kohelika, how has it been for you in terms of executing the projects in this current months?
Something we started moving towards about a year and a half ago was reducing the number of labor on site in many ways. And this is for a number of reasons that we started doing this because firstly, there is not enough healthy spaces for labor to stay, right? Spaces that are safe. And now more and more during COVID, we moved a lot of woodwork, etc., off-site into factories where it was all being constructed, beautifully measured, and it would come prepared, polished, and basically it had to be installed. So a lot of what Anubhav was talking about, and that I find helped because it's reduced the number of people on site. Certain things to certain sizes, so really it gets set, and the quantum of time spent in setting it all up reduces substantially on site. And I think this has been a good way. I mean, I have to say, I'm a very hands-on designer, so one can't avoid going to site. I think, and I'm sure Shalini and Mr. Patel and Anubhav will jump in to say that, there are certain things that until you go and touch and feel, you just can't move forward, So I have ventured out the days I wasn't in quarantining myself. I have ventured out. I've started going to site, but doing it sensibly. So I think rather than having earlier, there used to be in India large meetings, right? Everyone used to arrive. Every contractor, his supervisor, his junior supervisor, everybody used to come in one big circle and stand around you. I think all that needs to shut down, right? There needs to be the people. You have to make your meetings shorter. You have to get to the point. You have to call the people who you need to attend to over and out, and then you get a next meeting to do other things. So yes, it has to do about structuring your time much, much better and planning an agenda. And sometimes in India, I think we just forget that. We just arrive and then we'll carry on for hours and hours. So I think we have to learn from the West.
We'll have to train the clients also.
Plan, have an agenda, right, Pinakinji?
We'll have to train the clients to let us move on.
Yes. And this sense of
worldwide
and change and now twist and be like, no, okay, now this is shut down. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So Darshi Shah is asking, are we creating a new era of redesigning and creating more productivity in a certain way? Who would like to go for this? Pinakin?
We are. I mean, I hope.
Yes, it's obvious that we're moving into a new era in so many ways, and therefore, design is just such a small part on the peripheries of life. So I think life needs to be reinvented. So of course, design will have to be reinvented. And in the past few decades, I think design had become such a fashionable and sort of glamorous, dreamy a word that it used to give us solace to go towards design just to escape all the abrasion of existential living. But now I think you'll have to look at design in a far more holistic and a far more real way connected to life. So the biggest shift is it'll have to become more life-centric than style or design-centric.
Okay. I'm sorry, Elena, you want to say something?
Yeah, I totally agree with Pinakin in the sense that design should be about sense making, about problem solving. It's not just to trigger aspirationality on social networks. So I don't like the idea of design as decoration. It's very distant from my approach and our school approach. Design is about sense making. It's a mirror of society. If society changes, design is a way to cope with change and to find solutions.
I just wanted to add, we're already seeing this, and I think it will go the next mile. Design thinking as a framework. We see this now not only in the traditional design disciplines. People are using design thinking in banking, in finance. Certain cities even appointed a chief design officer. We are seeing designers in the boardroom of large corporations, PepsiCo, at Godrej, for example. And I think this new idea of using the design toolkit to solve a problem, it's almost like the old school, you were an engineer and you got an MBA, so you solve it analytically. I think designers have an ability to solve a problem creatively and something, a human-centric way. Putting the customer at the heart of the enterprise. And I think that is what counts today after this post-COVID thing. So it's even more important.
Okay. Sorry, Kohelika, you were wanting to say something?
Coming from someone who does a lot of homes, I think we have to rethink what luxury means to us. For me, luxury it's never been about possessions. It's been about a lifestyle and what it enables me to do. And I think, a lot of us, and I'm sure Mr. Patel will also add to this, that we have to understand what do you start valuing as a luxury to you? Because at the end of the day, no matter which strata of society you belong to, you want to live well. You want to have that feeling that you are living beyond. Most of us want to have that feeling we are living beyond our own means. So if we figure out a way to redefine luxury and pitch it in a way that it's actually with the help of all you guys in the media, I think we'll be able to adapt to a lot more sustainable ways of designing versus embellishments like what Elena also just talked about.
Yes.
Okay. One last question. It's from Parth Chawla. Any advice for young and budding architects when it comes to entrepreneurship? Who would like to go for this?
Anubhav.
Well, I think the future is bright. I think right now is a great time to be a designer and to wield your toolkit because a lot of conventions are being reassessed, redefined, and rethought. Also, there is an emergent need for these things to happen. So I just would hope that the education system provides you with that kind of a toolkit. I would hope that the wherever you go out to work, whether it's starting your own shop or if you go out and work for a company, that would offer you a platform to do something impactful and meaningful. And if that happens, I think the future is very bright. I remain optimistic. I am not, one to see the glass half empty. So, if all of our young budding designers think that way, feel that way, I do also think the clients are far more educated and welcoming of this, because remember, it's the same generation that is also becoming the client, like the millennials. So they're asking all the right questions. I think it is a meeting of minds. And I would hope to see the brightness.
I'd like to add to that if I can.
Please go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
I'm a very positive person like Anubhav, but I have a completely different outlook on this. I do not think entrepreneurship is for everybody. I studied at Pratt. I had an international education. I studied in Italy. I studied in England and in New York. And I have to say, design schools don't teach you how to run a business. They don't teach you how to sell talent. And selling talent is not easy. I think it's a time for people to collaborate. I think the millennium need to learn that just because you work for someone, it does not mean you don't have talent. You have to make yourself a critical part of a company so that you are valued. And that is the most important thing. Value does not come from working for yourself. Value comes by making yourself a core part of a bigger team and about this. I think it's a time for entrepreneurs. I think when I moved to India, if I had more and more architects who were doing beautiful stuff, I'm talking about 2005, rather than just copying the West, I would have my own company in 2005. I would have happily joined somebody else. I never joined my mother. A lot of you know this. It only happened in 2010. So while Anubhav, I'm very positive about the future. I think if the millennium are only thinking about this justification, this flag that they like to hold because they work for themselves, we're going to, and that's what's happened. We've all extended our cards and so important for us is that we own something. And I think that is something we have to get rid of.
No,
I'm very passionate about it.
I agree with you, Kohelika. The only thing I'd say is what's really cool to see now is that designers are on all sides of the table. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a client, Absolutely. Whether you work for anybody, and that's cool, right? Because we are making the bridge with each other. I joined the client side after several years of practicing as an architect.
But that's the point, Anubhav. You spent several years before you did that.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you.
People are not willing to spend that time and that commitment and that hard work which our generations grew up doing. That's the problem, I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I agree with you completely.
And startup patient, people don't have the patience anymore.
Yeah,
but I think also because of that, they have a lot of, the things that were not available to us. The world has opened up. The communication is much easier. So I think a lot of information is supplied to them. And because of the way the world is leading, they make conscious decisions about sustainability, about making the world a better place, because they'll have to live through it all.
Sorry, Pinakin, were you saying something?
No, I wasn't. I was agreeing with everyone's perspective. And my little bit to add on to this is to say that, whether it's sustainability, whether it's entrepreneurship or students coming out into mainstream society, I think what we need to add is just a little bit of depth into whatever they're doing. And that depth or that maturity is what Kohelika is saying, that, if you can train yourself, discipline yourself, organize yourself, and latch on to something that's already substantial, then you're giving yourself a better chance to then express yourself at a later date. It's like post-education directly to employment. I don't like it.
Right. Okay. So I know I've gone over time, but I want to thank all our viewers for logging in and to listen to all the opinions of our excellent panelists. Thank you, Anubhav. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Kohelika. Thank you, Pinakin. Thank you, Shalini. And thank you, Instituto Marangoni, for facilitating this panel discussion and inviting me to moderate it. Well, there is one universal truth. Life after this pandemic will look significantly different for every single one of us. Let's just hope we don't, get complacent. Don't forget everything that we've learned, we've heard right now in this discussion, so we can truly redeem planet. Yes, Pinakin. After that Sattvic lunch, I will.
Okay.
No, so let's just truly, work towards it. Yeah. As a media, as I can do what I will do, what I can do at my level. So thank you once again, everybody. Have a good evening, and thanks once again.
Thank you.